Bore da. In this session, I'd like to reflect on the challenges that last year has brought and to think about their effects on learner progress. And then I'd like to look forward and to share with you the kinds of things that I think we need to pay attention to ensure that all learners do make progress. And at the end, I'd like to read an extract from a poem. So if anyone had told us 18 months ago what the future would hold for all of us, and in particular for our young people, we would never have believed them. There's nothing positive about COVID-19. Communities have suffered, families have suffered, teachers and young people have suffered. And the exhaustion that so many people feel just now is simply a natural reaction to such really dramatic circumstances. But what COVID has done is to create an interruption. And that interruption has the potential to be a force for good or ill. It's so important just now that despite the very real and pressing challenges that we are all facing, that we find space to think, to plan, and to make sure that on the other side of the pandemic, the world is a positive place for young people, for teachers, for parents, and for Welsh society. Suddenly, the new Welsh curriculum seems more relevant than ever. If ever we needed to be reminded, the pandemic has brought to the forefront of our thinking how crucially important it is that education should support every young person to become as healthy as they can be, to be confident in themselves as individuals, ready to lead fulfilling lives as valued members of our society. The pandemic has also emphasised how connected the world is and how interdependent we all are. The importance of being an ethical, informed citizen of Wales and of the world is crucial. And we need to create the kind of world of which we would all want to be part. And to do that, we have to have an education system that creates ambitious, capable learners who are ready to learn throughout their lives, and enterprising creative contributors who are ready to play a full part in life and work. Countries all around the world are facing similar challenges. Wales has an advantage over many in that thinking has already been underway. But the thinking that's been done to date is only the beginning of a longer process. And the title of CAMAI's most recent report on the curriculum for Wales, and that's a phrase we borrowed from Graham Donaldson, really seems appropriate. So far, so good. So, what is it going to take to encourage the more positive future that everyone in Wales wants for the present and future generations of young people? There is a danger that following any major disruption, there is a desire to return to safety. And that safety is seen as the relative stability of the past. And as I listen to colleagues in other countries talking of their contexts, many are beginning to talk of the past being seen as a golden age. And the idea of catch up is a phrase that's consistent with that way of thinking. But it's a phrase that many of us find problematic, as we remember that the young people most affected by missing education during the pandemic were often the very same young people who were not served well by our previous systems. So, what are the things that we have to do? What are the challenges we have to face? And I think that the first challenge that we face is learning to live again as a school community. And to do that, we need to revisit ideas of inclusion, a place where everyone belongs. Young people, parents, teachers, school, wider school staff, head teachers, everyone has been through change in their lives. Now, for some, that change may have been invigorating. Young people who had more control over their learning, who could pace their learning in ways that suited them, who would engage with the world at their fingertips and take their learning in new, exciting directions. But for others, and we're really aware of this, there has been trauma. And that trauma has been far worse for some than for others. The second challenge then relates to that. So how do we engage everyone in learning? For that's the essence of what it is to be a school. The purposes are what matters. For these are the lenses through which we see the areas of learning experience. This curriculum, what matters to be an educated citizen in Wales, will only be brought to life in schools, in and out of classrooms, through pedagogy, ways of bringing young people and ideas together. So in planning for learning, a key question should always be, in what ways does this contribute to helping young people grow in ways that are consistent with the 4 purposes of education in Wales? What goes on in schools and classrooms, day to day, week to week, and how young people see the ways in which these experiences contribute to their progression in that bigger picture of the 4 purposes. And that's possibly one of the biggest changes in the way that all of us live our educational lives. For too long, too many young people internationally have seen education as a series of hoops to jump through. We do this because school tells us to, not because these are things that matter. And they have little deep understanding of the learning journey that they're part of as they progress towards becoming participative citizens in a democratic society such as Wales. Too many of our young people have been turned off by what they see as education that bears little connection to what matters in the real world. Some become invisible. Other young people become aggressive. And many simply learn to conform. But the new Welsh curriculum has to be much more than that. It seeks to engage, it seeks to inspire, and it seeks to listen. There are implications in all of this for the approaches to learning and teaching that we take. There are no right or wrong approaches to learning and teaching, but the approaches have to be linked to purpose. Thus, too much time spent working individually through a textbook is unlikely to create an active citizen. Undue emphasis on completing worksheets is unlikely to encourage creativity. Always telling children what to do next is unlikely to deepen a child's ability to reflect on their own learning. Now, these pedagogies aren't intrinsically wrong. It's just that they're unlikely to facilitate the connections between curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment that are built into the new Welsh curriculum. The third challenge is one that Wales has in common with many, many countries internationally. And that's the desire to change the assessment culture from one that focuses on the past and is heavily weighted towards assessment to judge and to categorize learners or teachers or schools or the nation, to one where assessment information is used to inform the future, to focus attention on what's most important for a young person or a school to learn next, to make progress. The progression steps, those signposts on a future-facing journey, give the Welsh curriculum its distinctive nature. But understanding and living these different approaches to assessment will be essential to keep alive the spirit of the new curriculum. So thus, I would argue that curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment are the DNA of learning. Curriculum, what matters to be an educated citizen in Wales. Pedagogy, the kinds of experience that will enable young people to build their knowledge, develop their competences, to grow as learners. And assessment, gathering insights with young people to explore and inform their progress. And working together to prioritise what is most important to encourage and enable future progress. Essentially, building a learning culture. And I'd like to leave you with a poem from Donna Ashworth, who asks, in 20 years' time, People will not ask the children of 2020 if they caught up with their studies. They will not ask them what grades they made despite the year off school. They will ask them and wonder, what was it like? They will ask them, how did you cope? How did you feel? What do you remember of those days? They will listen in awe to the tales of clapping on doorsteps for the medical workers. They will sit open-mouthed to hear of daily walks being the only life we saw and how much we missed human contact and gatherings. They will be amazed to know about empty supermarkets, online concerts, birthdays spent on a screen, and a life lived inside. They will listen, then sit back with amazement and say, wow, you went through so much. So think about what you would like your children to take away from this whole year. Tell them they're not behind. Tell them they're not missing out. Tell them they're extremely special indeed, and they will forever made stronger by this unique time. Tell them catching up is not even a thing because they have grown so much in so many other ways. Remind them too of the fun stuff, the family jigsaws, the window rainbows, the Zoom bingo, the feeling of safety and togetherness amidst the chaos. Let them take that thought with them through life. Change the narrative now and it will travel far. Tell the children they are not behind, they're special. They are special. Thanks very much.